So welcome to August. I'll just say that. It's a new month and there's a lot of new happening. If you follow the Hebrew calendar, we flipped over a new month there, which is really interesting and exciting, to be honest. Everything that's happening right now in our world, I love purpose and I love cycles, and I think this just all fits in beautifully. What we're going to do tonight as we begin this month is I want to kick off our time together with an AFT session of sorts. And I'll share with you why. I haven't walked anyone really through an actual AFT session in a while, probably a few years. In my motion classes, I use a lot of the same oils, a lot of the same principles and techniques, but I do find a huge amount of value to the way Dr. Perkis set it all up and the steps that he ordered it in. And as I was thinking about this and praying through our time together through the month of August, my goal for August was to really, what's the word I want to use? Not tackle the spirit, but really tap into that spirit. What I find, especially as I talk to people, let's say about prayer or emotions, really actually a lot of times purpose. I can't, if I had a penny for all the times that I spoke to someone and they said, I don't know what my purpose is, I don't know what my calling is. And when I say just pray, talk to the Lord, whatever, I don't hear God. I mean, I would be quite a wealthy woman. And so what I've realized is that many times our soul or our emotions, they block us from knowing what God wants for us, knowing what our spiritual life could, should, would, even possibly would look like. And even when I talk to people who don't have the same faith as me, it's always that. There's always a block from coming to faith in our God because there's woundings, they're just stuck. So as we dive in, I believe we have at least 4, possibly 5 times in August to meet on a Monday. I'd love to finish this summer strong, beginning with clearing out the negative junk, starting to set some goals, and then walking through. And this is a practice, you guys, that you can do really on your own. You can come back to this video again and again. And walk yourself through this when you have those little times where it's like, I just can't quite get it, or I can't quite hear. And as we go on and through the month, we'll start diving into different aspects of our spirit self so that we can finish this summer, this season, prepared for fall. And we'll be launching something new in the fall. One of the biggest reasons that I want to do this is because I just walked through this myself, and I used to think that when you had really deep emotions, I don't qualify that, trauma versus just having a bad day. Everybody's heart is hard. But before I lost my husband, I would have thought, gosh, if you have like the death of a loved one, that's kind of big. I mean, I understand that trauma is trauma, but sometimes the death of a loved one, it's just, it really affects so much of your life. And going through an AFT session, I used to think, okay, well, you can't really believe anything different about that. And I couldn't have been more wrong. And here's why. Because when you lose somebody, your spouse, a child, a loved one, anything, in that instant, it shapes your belief system. If you aren't careful, it'll continue to shape your belief system, and it'll continue until all of a sudden, fast forward a year, 2 years, 4, 10 years down the road, maybe even a couple decades, all of a sudden you have these belief systems that have hindered you from walking in that purpose and that calling. And so as I've experienced this in my own life over the last 11 months, and now we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of my husband's passing, it's really interesting. And I do this for a living. I teach emotions and I do goal setting, and still sometimes you have blind spots. So as I walk through this on my own, I realized, wow, I have got some big old blinders on, like a horse, for heaven's sakes. And it was so good, and it was so profound. And just one session of just walking through these steps, listening to someone else pull things out, I started to see where I had some blocks. And I'll share this with you. I am a better teacher when I can share by experience. I share my experience not to make it all about me. It's because it's all I know how to get a point across. Some people like to read from a book or they have data and facts. I like to share, hey, this is how it worked for me. This is why I want to teach it. I never want anyone to think, oh, that Jen Weir just talks all about herself. And it's not that. It's because I feel like, gosh, somebody can learn from my story. Surely. Right, Heather, stories are the best examples, I think. But when I walk through this AFT session, I'll share this part. I have a few friends, and my really, really close friends who know me, they often wonder, do you ever cry? I mean, they've seen me shed tears over my husband and over situations, but as a whole, I just don't cry. I don't like to have people see me cry. I don't have to go into that, but you guys can figure that out. When I was walking through the AFT session, I realized when we'll get to the parts, where are you feeling it? I thought back, I always feel it around my eyes. Whatever the it is, whatever the negative emotion is, I feel it here. And I'm breathing in these oils, and I felt a little in my chest, but I thought, gosh, I feel it in my eyes. And I was asking Lord, why do I always feel it in my eyes? And he's so kind to answer you. It was at that minute I had a memory of watching my biological father walk away. I don't know if most of you don't know my story. My dad chose military life over being a dad, and he was special ops and all these crazy things. And the world thinks he's wonderful, and he won all these medals, but he was not a good dad. And so I had this memory of that, and also of not being allowed to cry, because most of my maternal family hated the man for obvious reasons. And so when I would feel sad, it was, no, you're not allowed to do that. They never really said that, but it was just sort of the message I got. So I never cried. And I remember as an adult, or even as an older teenager, young adult, seeing my dad and being just devastated when he would leave, to the point one of my roommates one time was like, you need to get some help. That's how I actually started therapy. And it would just grieve me. But you're not allowed to cry. And so fast forward, now I'm 49, and those thoughts came like that. Oh, holy crow. That was interesting. And so I've been using release around my eyes and allowing tears to come. And I realized, so there's that portion. And I want to share this with you for anybody who has children, or anybody that you know who has children. This is so valuable. Get this. In my family, my husband and I, with our children, we're like, if you need to cry, cry. We never told them, stop crying, don't do that, but my children don't cry. If they feel like they're going to cry about their dad, or some of them, if they see me cry, they walk out of the room. I teach emotions for a living. We have Young Living oils literally everywhere. Emotions are a huge part of our life, and yet they don't cry. They've never heard me say it, none of that. What you need to get is that what was embedded in my DNA is in my children. The message that was given to me by my family, the message I believed and received and I internalized and was rooted and embedded in me, was passed on genetically to my children. Deb, I heard the same thing. Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. Yes. Golly, how many people our age generation grew up hearing that? Or being called a crybaby. Right? It's just where we are. So crying. And I remember when I very first started taking AFT and then getting certified, Dr. Purpose. Well, might as well be. Someone tell the man we've renamed him. Dr. Perkis said, if you have tears, during your sessions and all this, he says, tears are soap for the soul. And I've thought of that for these last 7 years, and that soap for the soul. So interesting. Because when we have woundings, it's like our soul gets dirty. It gets wounded. And if you've ever had a deep wound, you have to clean it out. You have to use an antibacterial soap, something to clean out that wound. Well, our tears have salt in them. Have you guys ever done, just this is totally an aside, but not really, nothing is really a tangent. But have you ever done a study on salt? Salt in scripture, what salt is good for, maybe even the history of salt in your spare time. And I say that so tongue in cheek. I would encourage you to start looking up some things about salt, noticing it. If you read the scriptures, just maybe give a little highlight to all the places it talks about salt, and then start to think about that, how our body has so much salt. Our tears are salty. You feel really good after a good cry. Just be thinking about that. As we walk through, please remember, especially for those of you who are watching later who maybe aren't as well versed in essential oils or why they work for emotions, but our sense of smell is one of the most primitive senses. Meaning that our smell is is closely tied to our survival instincts. So you have the olfactory, right? And the limbic systems are very close together. They're directly connected. And when you have an emotion in your limbic system, or that's where it stems from, in that moment, if it's a negative emotion or something that creates a strong response, your limbic system is telling you whether you need to fight, run away, flight, freeze, or fawn, or faint. There's some different ones we've heard, fight, flight, or freeze. There's now studies are showing that people will faint, or they'll fawn like they're about to faint. Different personalities. I'm not sure. I've never heard of flock. Sherry, do you want to explain that? I'd love to share that with everyone else.
Flock, like when you see sheep and a predator shows up, they all run together in mass because there's more protection in a group than if you're by yourself.
Interesting.
So run to what you're comfortable with, what your people are, your things are. You'll run to that to surround yourself with it so you feel safe.
That's interesting. That makes me think about, I know we've talked about this in the past, but false refuge. So something that feels like it's comforting. I just need to do this because I'm having a hard time. The false refuge is that it's exactly what it is. It's false. So thank you for sharing that. But this is where in our limbic system, that's where our survival instinct is. And so when we have these negative emotions, if they're not dealt with, that can cause those responses and reactions. And in my story about the not crying, the survival instinct was, these people don't like your dad. If you look sad about that you missed him, they're also not going to like you. Well, every human on the planet wants to be liked, especially a child. So we're going to do whatever it takes to be liked, to be loved, to be cared for, to have those innate needs met. Hence, you start to have these different belief systems. With the aroma freedom technique, and I won't get into the nuances, I think all of you watching and probably later on understand what it is and why it works. It's phenomenal. It really is a stunning emotional healing, or freedom, I shouldn't say healing, he doesn't use that, but releasing technique. But in order to know what's blocking in your spirit, as we start to talk more about spiritual matters and spiritual things, it's important to clear out the stuff that is hanging on your soul. We walked through in July so much about that, so much about our emotions. We've all shared different things. But what we need to get to, and especially if you talk to someone who doesn't have faith, many times it's not necessarily that they don't believe because they can't believe. There's something blocking. Your soul is an interface from your body to your spirit. Right? We talked before about we are a body, we are a spirit, we have a soul, we're in a body. And our soul can be very loud and unruly, especially when we have negative emotions that are keeping us stuck. So tonight, as I shared in the chat, and you saw as you're watching online, on the graphic, it says the different oils that you can choose from. So if you have those, just have your lavender, frankincense, and stress away in front of you, and either inner child, peace and calming, and or tangerine for the next round. Release, purification, RC, and or raven for the third round. And then for the fourth, believe, transformation, or simply peppermint and or lemon. In aroma freedom technique, many times it's done to get us feeling unstuck. You know, if we come to a situation, maybe we're doing a fitness goal, a work goal. You know, I think a lot of times we have all these business goals. But when it comes to emotions, and we talked about this last week, so it's really just all of these classes are standalone, but they build on each other. And last week, if you've missed it, go back and watch that one. If you're on YouTube, you can just scroll up to the next video or scroll down, however that works. But last week, we talked about setting a goal. And I want to continue on in that vein. And I'd love for us to sit down and think of and write out some goals with our emotions. When it comes to September, October, November, write a goal that you have emotionally. I promise you, this goal that you set has everything to do with every business goal you're trying to achieve, every fitness goal you're trying to achieve, relationship goal, everything. I've sat in half a dozen business classes. I've taken three courses actually on business building. And every time I sit in them, I think they're missing something. As phenomenal as all the classes are, and well worth every penny I've spent, every single one of them misses the emotion piece. It's actually only been in the last, I'd say 6 months, that I've watched people start talking about emotions more. And I'm thrilled. The event that we went to for Young Living a few weeks ago, they spoke a little bit about emotions. And I was like, yeah, come on, tell us more, because that is what's holding all of these people back, myself included, for sure. So as you sit there, ask yourself, well, let me back up. If setting an emotion goal is challenging for you, then think about something else, something more physical goal, whether it's work, business, finance, family, whatever it is. And then if you look at that, you're going to know immediately what emotion is charged to that, why you don't have that thing, right? Because you can have anything you want. So if you don't have whatever that is, if you're not in the physique that you want to be in, if you don't have the relationship, we all know you can do that. But ask the question why. So start there. Write out your statement of what you want at the top of your paper in the present tense. And if you feel comfortable, I'd love for you to share in the chat so we can encourage each other. Maybe you don't have to share your first statement, but as we go through and I ask for numbers or feelings or places, feel free to comment so that I can see where everyone is at. As you're setting your emotion goal, you might say something like this. I feel empowered for me, I feel empowered and confident when I teach. Perfect, Sherry. I'm worthy of the goodness of God. Yes. So you get it. It's in the present. It's not I will feel worthy or I am going to feel confident. It's right now. And as you look at your statement, say it out loud. And then can you rate that? How possible does that feel? 10 being absolutely. I absolutely exercise daily to be toned and healthy, 100%. Or, to a 0 where I don't even think my little finger is going to get up today and do that. So give it a number, 0 to 10. And as you say it out loud one more time. And then if it's not a 10, and if it is a 10, we need to make it a little bit more challenging. What is the voice that's telling you that this isn't possible? What's the voice telling you that it's not a 10? Why it can't be a 10? Write down what it's saying. You won't have to keep this piece of paper. We don't want any negative things laying around. And where are you, how does that make you feel? A one-word answer, just one, of an emotion that you can attach to how that feels. When you have the feeling, where are you feeling that? Okay, thank you, Kathy. Attract new friends in my new neighborhood. I need that affirmation too. Where are you feeling that? So right now, this is when you know where you're feeling it and what the feeling is, the emotion, this is when we'll take our lavender, our stress away, and our frankincense. Just one drop of each. And breathe it in, cup over your nose and mouth like we've done with our breathing. Breathe it all the way down as deep as you can from your belly. And think back to a time, ask yourself, ask the Lord, when was the first time I felt this way in this part of my body? When was the first time I felt angry in my pulse? Be patient. Let that memory come up. And as the memory comes up, keep breathing in your oils. The oils will go in and be like a little sponge, a little washcloth, and wash away that negative memory. Keep breathing it in. And if you're ready to move on, just type in ready in the chat. And if you're not, we're not hurrying, not rushing you. Take your time.
What does ready to move on mean?
That is an excellent question. What it means, what I mean when I say that at this point, Kathy, is you're ready to the next step, which would be to say the affirmation again and see if the number changed. You might, or did the memory shift for you? Did the emotion of it change? If you felt any sort of a shift, that in this case, that means I'm ready to move on. That's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. Okay. And if you had absolutely no change, no shift, we can work with that too. You can also be ready and just, you know what, maybe we need to adjust. So read your statement out loud again. This time ask, how possible do you feel it is now? And in the chat, let me see two numbers, your first number and then your second number together. Okay. Okay. Is there a voice that has chattered to you? A negative voice telling you why this is not a 10? If there is, make a note to yourself what it's saying. Looking at that number, hearing that voice or those negative thoughts, can you add a feeling to it? Maybe the feeling is the same as last time, maybe it's different. What's the feeling that you have now? And where are you feeling that? Where are you feeling that negative emotion? In this next time, we're going to use either inner child, peace and calming, or tangerine. We're going to put pause on lavender, frankincense, and stress away. So I'm going to ask you to do two things with this oil. You can breathe it in, as we did just a minute ago, and if it's possible, also apply it to the place that you're feeling it. In the story that I share with you about the eyes, once I realized, I put the oil around my eyes and kept breathing it in. If you have it in your throat, maybe use it right there. Think back to a time when you felt this feeling in this portion of your body. If it's the same thing, ask the question, is there another memory that needs to be dealt with? Is there another event? And then breathe in one of those oils, whether inner child, peace and calming, or tangerine. Breathe that in. This is that time that you may start to have tangible emotions come up, tears, coughing. It's a form of release. You may have that in our next round, our next time we walk through this. I want to encourage you that if this is a memory that is hard and it's painful, give it to the Lord. If you're a person of faith, give it to Him and let Him deal with it. Picture yourself handing it over, laying it at His feet, ask Him to deal with it. I can personally attest to when I've done that, the most astounding things have happened. If you feel a shift from that, just type in the chat that you're ready to move to the next step. Same thing as before about being ready. We're still going to walk through a couple more rounds, doing it a little bit different each time. Once you have a shift, look at your statement again, read it out loud again, and now ask, how possible is this? That's quite a jump, Sherry. I'm so grateful to see that. How possible? I should see 3 numbers here in the chat. Good. That's good. You might even want to take a minute while we're just waiting for others to jot down a couple notes and things that came up, maybe something you saw. So as we look at it again and we say it out loud and you have the possibility, now notice what voices are there now. I've noticed most of your numbers have gone up significantly. Actually, everyone's have gone up significantly. Is there a negative voice? And if so, what is it saying? Is there anything telling you that this is not possible, that it's still not possible, or there is a little bit of a doubt? Moving on to different oils, we're going to use either release, purification, RC, or Raven. These are in the chat above at the very beginning of our talk, our time. Choose one of these.
So Jen, if we were late, we don't have that above, just FYI.
Oh, you don't? Okay. I wondered. Hold on, let me.
But that's okay. I have my release.
Okay, perfect.
But I don't know about anybody else that might have come late. So thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you for that. So in this case, Some of you may feel more hopeful. You might have more of a positive emotion now. You might be having more positive voices. Still walk through this process. If you're having negative, same thing. Where are you? What are you feeling? Where are you feeling it? For those struggling, not struggling, for those still dealing with the negative side of it, what's a memory that you felt this way in that part of your body? If you've had a more positive shift, again, what's a memory that you have felt this positive emotion in that portion, that part of your body? This will help you anchor. Breathe in your release or purification or RC or Raven into that space in your body, into that emotion. Your oils are smart. With intention, you can tell your oils where to go in that portion of your body. And you can have the intention of releasing that emotion out of that area of your body. If it's in your throat, in your belly, in your back, keep breathing your oils into that memory, the feeling, and that space. If the feeling has shifted to different parts in your body, think about going back and using this oil, one of these 4 oils you're using, and applying it to those areas. Because remember, we're using different oils for each round. Make some notes if you need to about what you felt. Some new truths might be springing to your mind now. So look back at your statement. Assess the possibility again as you write it out. You might even readjust how you wrote it. Maybe you fine-tuned it, the statement. Maybe you've added to it. Maybe we say, I feel calm and confident when. We have more specifics. Or before that, because I read scripture each day, because God says this about me, I feel calm and confident when. Just some ideas. So as you say that again, what's the possibility? And then go ahead and put that in the chat. We should see 4 numbers there. I am being pursued by the goodness of God. Nice. The last round is our anchor round. And so this is where we have our believe or transformation, peppermint or lemon. Peppermint and lemon are so great. They really shift the brain because God is always with me. I attract new friends in my new neighborhood. Oh, I love that. Yes, absolutely. Calm, confident, and consistent. Perfect. So take one of those oils that's going to anchor you into this new truth. It's really not a new truth. It's new to you truth. It's a truth that God speaks about you. God has nothing but wonderful, expected, and perfect words for you. So as you look at this, your statement, very likely that he gave you because it's true and it's good and it's beautiful. Take one of these oils that is going to root that in. It's going to be so firmly rooted in you, not only in your mind and in your limbic system, but all the way down to your toes. Breathe in your oil as we did earlier, all the way from your belly. We've walked through this time together in our breathing. And if you've never walked through breathing with me, hop over to my YouTube. That's the very first thing that you see on my page, because I think breathing is so key. But take your oil, breathe it in, and as you breathe it in, say your statement. And then say it again, a little bit louder, a little bit stronger if you're able, if you don't have people around you that might think you're off your rocker. And if you do, maybe that they'll join in with you. One of the things that Dr. Perkis encourages us to do is to stand, to do like a power move to help ground this in. Put your feet firmly rooted on the floor. Maybe you stretch your arms out. If you're not in a place that you can do that right now, create this as a daily habit. As you read your statement, consider saying, I am confident, I'm calm, confident, and consistent, standing, breathing in your oils. When I work with this a lot, I have my affirmations not on a Post-it note, but I write it on my bathroom mirror with a dry erase marker, or I'll write it on my office door so that I can see it, so that I say, yep, that's true of me. So right now, think of a way that you can have this statement in front of you all the time. Maybe you put it on your smartphone as a screensaver. Maybe you set an alarm so it goes off every hour, just as a reminder, and you say it along with the reminder. Always breathing in your oil. As you speak out your affirmation, make some notes about some ideas that you came up with, ways that you're going to now make this happen. As we talked about, these are emotion goals. But there's ways, tangible ways we can do this. What's coming into your environment? What can be removed? What can be replaced? How can we substitute things that we see, things that we watch, things that we hear and listen to? Even the foods we eat mess with our spirit. Did you guys know most people can't hear the voice of God because their pineal gland is so crusty from calcium buildup? This is our inner knower. This is our intuition. Unfortunately, it's been called the third eye, but this is, the Hebrews thought this was considered the Holy of Holies. Isn't that interesting? So maybe consider decalcifying your pineal gland in August. I may have written a book on that kind of stuff. You might want to check. There's other people probably wrote even more on it. It's a thing. in any case, those are just some ideas, some tangible ideas that really matter for the soul and the spirit. As we continue on this month, I want to encourage you, take some time each day and speak out your affirmation. If you start to have some hiccups or some feelings of, hold on, I'm having some resistance here, take a second. Choose any of the oil processes that we did, whether it's with your frankincense, trust and lavender, maybe inner child, just something, and take just a 5-minute reset. Where am I feeling this? Or what am I feeling? Where am I feeling this? When's the first time I felt this way in this place? Literally within 10 minutes, 5 minutes even, you'll get it. And you become so good at it that all of a sudden, it's not an issue anymore. Before I stop the recording, do any of you have anything you want to share? Any aha moments that you had?
Laying it at God's feet was pivotal.
I'm so glad.
That's what it allowed me to move. I had no hope. I even thought, I shouldn't say this because I'm not going to be able to move.
Mm.
I'm going to be working on this all night if I make this affirmation. And then I might fall asleep first before I move, you know. But
Yeah.
honestly, Jen, I did. I had that image. I laid it at his feet. He reminded me that he goes with me throughout the neighborhood. In every interaction, he is with me.
Amen.
So thank you for that.
Yes. I'm so excited to hear that. I love that so much. I love that. Thank you for sharing.